Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, is what it is. We are
It is
here.
what it is. Hi there. This is the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
So today we're talking about something that I bet a lot of people do talk about, and I think it's really important. So
Hmm.
we're talking about activities that are suitable for people with disabilities or lack of mobility, whether that's you, which I was thinking, gosh, the people I know lots of places, but I didn't until I asked them. So if you're going to have friends that have some sort of mobility or
Hmm.
disability, it would be good to think about what it is that's helpful to know before you take them. And I've also gone out a couple times with people that were in wheelchairs, and so it was interesting to learn. And I went out with a guy with a cane for a while, and so it's helpful to, if it's not your challenge, then how do you think about it ahead of time if you want to meet somebody someplace or go with them someplace, to think ahead of time.
Yeah, it's really having the mindset of accommodation,
Yeah.
because really what you're doing is you're accommodating somebody else who basically you want to spend time with, who doesn't necessarily have the same mobility or same
Mhm.
clarity or way of doing things that you are. I mean, clearly, if just so people know, neither one of us are dealing with these sort of handicaps or disabilities or mobility issues, so we're doing pretty good. So we're not speaking from personal experience, speaking from what we've learned. Just to be clear, people don't go, they think we know everything. It's like, no, we learn as well because we're students as well.
Yeah. So the thing to think about, even in 2024, because this is what I learned by asking the people I knew that had this challenge in their life, there's still places that are not ADA,
Right.
American Disabilities Act. There's still places where they can't get there from here. And
Hmm.
sometimes they have options. It's difficult. So that's the first thing to think about, is to call the place, ask the place, what kind of accommodations do they have if somebody has mobility issues, if they're in a small wheelchair or a full-size wheelchair, or need other kind of accommodations. It's really important to ask ahead of time and not get there and go, oops.
Yeah. It's interesting because there are things that, I mean, just thinking outside the box, not just in mobility, but also like if you're dealing with someone who's deaf or has hard of hearing or who's blind, there's other things that can come as well, even dealing with neurological challenges too.
Mhm.
Because I was just thinking in my head, because I have a friend of mine who's having hearing issues, and I remember this is not necessarily relevant to this topic of mobility, but it's something I'm just aware of, is that she left her hearing aids at home one day when we were in the same place. And I just learned, like about 2 days prior to that, that the iPhone has this new feature where you can use your the AirPods as hearing aids. It's built into the software now, and you can do that. And so I showed her, and she was so excited, and like, I'm so glad I knew that because then I can pass it on to her. So sometimes our awareness of what's possible for other people can be such a gift to give them. So even though that's not really what we're talking about here directly, if we notice certain things that will benefit somebody who is having challenges with mobility or other challenges, when we think of that, I mean, maybe I'm just personally thinking about this because I love the idea of serving, making a difference. If someone's watching this is going, how can I make a difference? This is another thing you can do. Carry wisdom and awareness that other people may have challenges with, you can help with, you know?
Mhm. So some of the places that I've gone with people, taken people, suggested to people, that generally have very good accommodations because they're a very people-y place. So museums and art galleries are great places to go
Yeah.
because they usually have bigger spaces for them to have some mobility and movability that you can get and then you can ask what's the best hours to come, where like you're not going to have a bunch of kids on tours, where you really will have some area for them to be able to get around if they need some extra area. Those have been great. And the theater, either the movie theater, they have great accommodations, as well
Yeah.
as, ramps and then spaces. And then they have a chair next to it for the person that comes with them. I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
And
Same
then
here.
also the live theater. What I learned is they're so grateful if you call ahead of time. we're going to be coming and we need this kind of accommodation. And they're like, great. And so then when you check in, they're like, okay, we have your spot and we have somebody that's designated to show you how to get there, rather than just showing up. So not
Mhm.
only checking to see, but also giving them a heads up, I think is really helpful.
Absolutely. And that's another part too, is that, you know, when you're with somebody who you know well, who has a challenge or a disability, it sometimes feels like we become complacent because we know them so well. We just go along with the flow. So to keep presence of mind to that, so when you're going somewhere new or somewhere different, like you're saying, where you can notify them ahead of time so they can be prepared, can just show how much you care about your friend or your partner if it's your partner.
Yeah. And then, oh, well, Graham Williamson, thank you for writing in. Hi, everyone. I was brought up with my folks looking after people with mental and physical disabilities. I never saw one. I saw that they had to accommodate them, and I learned disabilities had to be overcome. Thank you. That's really helpful. Boy, you've had more personal experience than I think Barry and I put together. So I love
Indeed.
when people are watching and make comments. It's so helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's when you brought up the other things besides just mobility, my late husband has a cousin who both parents were deaf and she was born hearing. So she signed her whole life.
Yeah.
And she said the thing that was really interesting is that people don't know what to do when somebody is signing, and that you look for the person that is their interpreter. That's what her job is now. She interprets. She goes to medical appointments, she goes to college classes, she goes to weddings and concerts
Hmm.
and church services. Yeah, it's really fun. So that you look at the person that you're talking to, but you have a communication with the person that's the interpreter, so that they, because the person that's deaf often can read your lips,
Yeah.
and if you speak slower, and they want to know that you're talking to them, but the interpreter's used to you not talking to them.
Right.
So it's really an interesting thing that I learned having Zelda around, to to make sure I wasn't talking to her, that I was talking to the person that was with her.
It's funny. A friend of mine I know, actually a fellow alumni from my grad school, she had lost her hearing in her late teens, early 20s, and so she could speak no problem at all, but she couldn't hear. She lost. It was an accident she had. But the thing is, she could lip read, and that was something that was interesting because she had actually almost a super skill, because she could lip read people across the room that we couldn't hear. So it worked that way as well. So it isn't a disability necessarily; it's another skill. But the thing about it also was is that when I was with her, I had to make sure I was facing her when I talked to her, not just like, because oftentimes we're out and about in the world, we're not facing each other, walking around, and so you say something, but they can't see your face, they don't know you're saying anything, and so I had to remember, turn and face before I said anything that I wanted to communicate with her, and so that became a key thing as well.
I think it helps us people that we have other things. Everybody's got their things, and
Hmm.
that's not our thing. To be even more conscious of what makes their life easier. How can I make their life easier rather than harder? That I have to do something that's so out of my normal way of functioning.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I've talked to with people with in wheelchairs or crutches, they like doing outdoor stuff. If you can figure out an outdoor thing for them. And so the thing that they were telling me they like a lot is picnics. They really like picnics because most parks have a place where you can go up. There isn't a curb, there's a ramp. Partly said parks were even more able for them because people were bringing carts and stuff. So there were already those kind of driveways where they
Yeah.
didn't have, they could use it. But there's often, the picnic tables are pretty close to where the walkways are, so they don't have to go too far on the grass or the dirt. And
Yeah.
it gets them outside and they can go fishing if there's a lake. So to be thinking about, it's not just indoor activities, that there's
Hmm.
also really fun outdoor activities that they can do.
Yeah. And if you're going out for dinner, something like that, most restaurants will accommodate, taking the chair out the way so you can sit at the table in your wheelchair or move into a chair if you want to do it that way too.
Mhm.
Because the thing about it also, I want to say this as well, is that there's a there's a broad spectrum of disability and mobility challenges, as well as other issues too. So there isn't necessarily a fixed rule or a hard and fast, this is the way it must be, because people are in a wheelchair or having or are blind. I know um, who is legally blind, but she can see to a degree. So it's accommodating the degree of blindness, so to speak. So it's not just like automatically this way it is the way you do things. It's being aware and also learning. Again,
Mhm.
another skill about being a service is learning what works for that person, where their challenges are, where you can help them, where how they interact with the world is a certain way. And the other challenge also, and this is something I'm also aware of, is like a friend of mine, her husband, he's not handicapped. She's in a wheelchair. She lost her legs in a car accident. But it's like every time we see each other, we're dear friends, and I'll squat down to hug her because she's in a small chair. She's like one of these like sport like the speeding things. She's not in a regular
Uh-huh.
wheelchair. And there's something I learned. I learned this thing years ago in a seminar when we would do this idea where you'd actually learn how to hug people in a certain process. And so I said, if you're taller than somebody, soften your knees so you can come down at the level. So when you hug them, you're face to face. So you're like, she can be shoulder to shoulder when you hug them. And that's carried with me for over 30 years. And so if somebody's in a wheelchair or somebody is shorter than me, regardless of what there's that thing is, I know when I want to hug them to adjust myself to fit them,
Yeah.
which is a simple thing we can do. Again, little things we can do that make life easy for them as well.
And that's such a good point, because what I've found from my friends who've had disabilities, they said, just ask. Just ask.
Yeah.
Ask what works for me. Ask what would be best for me. Ask what kind of things I might need. Even ask what not to do. This
Hmm.
is uncomfortable for me, or this would be better this way. And because they've lived with it for however long, maybe their whole life or part of
Yeah.
their life, and they know. And we helper people just want to assume and want to just jump in. And I kept thinking, should I tell this story? But it made me have a little more empathy, which is what our important subject is here. So when Rosie the horse fell on my leg in
Hmm.
September of 2020, and I was on a walker, and I couldn't put my foot down for 6 weeks. And it was interesting because I had been in the other side of people, can I help you? Can I help you? Go, don't touch me. I am perfectly balanced. I'll ask if I need help, because I knew if they tried to help, I was probably going to end up on the ground.
Yeah.
And so it made me be even more conscious of ask.
Yeah.
Don't just assume, don't just reach in, because I know I'd been guilty of that. I know I have, because I'm such a helper person. And I'll
Hmm.
tell you now, I do not. I go, do you need anything? Is there something I could do? Boy, I remember being in that spot. And they'd say, hold a door, carry a
Right.
package, don't touch them. I mean, we know what we're doing if we're on. I could not, I did crutches for 2 walks and went, yeah, that's not happening. But the walker and the little knee scooter thing, and it gave
Hmm.
me a taste of, glad that it was for such a short time for me personally, of don't mess with them. Ask
Yeah.
first. Yeah, boy, that came out in spades to me.
Well, that's a key thing, and absolutely that process, because it's so easy to make assumptions and to presume about things, and so being to be what's the word, be humble enough to ask them what they need versus presume you think you know something about somebody, because you don't. I mean, this is true across the broad spectrum of relationship conversations anyway, really, about don't assume anything about other people, ask them and find out. So even more so when you have someone who's got a challenge like this, because it gives them permission to tell you what they need, and also make sure that they then can check you out to see if you're it's not, I would say worthy, but it's like if you can handle what they need. Because it's like, they may say, well, I want to do this and this. Is like, you may not be able to do it for them. So at least you give them the opportunity to look and check and see if that fits for them, to have you help them as well. So it's a dance in a way of having this really open and reasonable conversation.
And always remembering, it's a person, it's a
Yes.
human being. No matter what their disability is, no matter what kind of mechanism is helping them maneuver through life, whether it's a wheelchair or a cochlear implant or a cane or a service dog, there's still a person there. And to
Hmm.
remember that with all your might, to speak to them as a person, and to smile and say hello, and is there anything I could do? I mean, when I was hobbling around on my little walker with my foot up because I couldn't put my foot down on the ground for 6 weeks. I'd get to doors and go, because they weren't automatic doors. And one time I got to the bank and this kid, like 12-year-old, came running from the other side to open the door for me. Because heavy pull doors were really hard on a
Right.
walker. So
Yeah.
to be aware of that. But I stopped and he stopped and I said, yeah, great, do that for me. So he even waited for my permission and I appreciated that. It was a good reminder for me to always ask. But to know that there's a person and they want you to treat them like a person. They're still a whole person inside of there. I mean, that's the thing I think more able-bodied people forget.
Yeah.
It's not that there's something missing about them as a person. They have a heart and a soul and a mind. And I'm going to continue promoting this couple. Their last name is Wampler, Wampler, and their podcast is called The Wampler Way. And he has had cerebral palsy since he was a kid. So he has completely been wheelchair bound and he has lots of twitches and stuff that happens to his body all the time. And he went on the dating apps and his wife came for the first date and was like, and I think she knew some, but she got there and went, wow. But she says by the end of the date, she couldn't wait to see him again because he was the most fascinating man she'd ever met. And they've now been married. They have 2 kids and they love their podcast. People are always asking. So, and they go, kids happen the natural way. Everything works just fine. And they just talk about it. And then he started a camp. They're here in California. They have a camp in Northern California where they have accommodations for as long as you're under 18, you can show up to the camp for free. And one of the things they talked about too was buoyancy. So a lot of what I've heard for people in wheelchairs is you put a one of those life vests on them and they can float in the water and it gives their body a feeling of more freedom.
Oh God, yeah.
Because they're able to move their arms and legs, or you can move their arms and legs, and it just feels more free for them. They're not in this heavy weighted body. Right. And then one of my loves is equine therapy, that you put children and young adults on a horse and the horse just knows that there's a special person there and it helps with their core. And one of the girl that was the very first person at Tara's Chance said that the coolest thing about sitting on a horse, because she'd been in a wheelchair her whole life, she was now taller than everybody.
Yep.
She got to look down on us, which she never does in her chair.
Boy, I love that. And that's the thing, it is options. I'm just remembering other things too. It's like there's somebody I know a long time ago actually passed away quite a while ago too. Had what's known as brittle bone disease. Basically he was, it was kind of like, he was like tiny because his body wouldn't grow that big. But he was a sharp mind, a great teacher, and really well known in the speaking industry, and a really cool guy. And I only met him once, actually when he got engaged, and it was something. Just his way of being was just transcended his physical form. So people called him like he was a giant in a dwarf's body sort of thing. The way his energy was, because he's such a great spirit and such a cool person. He passed away quite a while ago now, I remember. But his way of being, he transformed lives. And he didn't do it from saying, look at me, you should be better. It was more about, he just had ideas and inspiration and thoughts to give to people, say, live your life the way you want to and all these different things. And he changed people's lives. And it wasn't about, because of his situation, it was almost like totally independent of that. So it's wonderful. So what you're saying is like, basically when we see people, don't make assumptions.
No.
You never know who's inside. I mean, it's true. I can put it this way. Somebody I've met before, you don't know what's inside them anyway, good, bad, or indifferent. And their physical appearance and the physical challenges they may face are irrelevant to that. So be open, be curious, be interested. You don't know what you're going to find. You might be surprised what you're going to discover.
I love that word, irrelevant, because it is. It's not relevant to who they are.
Yeah.
Very true. Because what I found is we all have gifts, and some of the things that are harder for us or lacking in us, we seem to be emphasizing even better, knowing how to do other things better in our lives. So looking for the gift and what kind of activities, and when we get back from our break, we're going to talk about even more activities that could expand and make their life better, that maybe they have already thought of or haven't. I mean, they've been wanting to go do it and they wanted somebody that would go do it with them, and to be
Absolutely.
game. You never know.
Well, we'll
We
tell
could
them
come
we're
up
open
with some
coming after
pretty
the break.
wild things.
Yeah, we'll see you after the break.
Okay, be right back.
All right, back in a minute.
I'm plugged in and everything. And we're back. This is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about activities that are suitable for people with disabilities or lack of mobility or all sorts of challenges that make the world that's for the general population could be a little bit more difficult and challenging for them. And how can you, as somebody that's their friend or somebody who might potentially be dating them, or you're somebody that it's in a wheelchair or has crutches, and you're like, where could I go and what could I do and what could I suggest to people for me to do as an activity? That's what we're hoping. And boy, if you have other ideas, please let us know, because as I said, Barry and I have not lived this at all in our human bodies in this lifetime, but we both have personal friends and have met people that have been in these challenges, and so we've gotten information from them. But we'd love to hear your feedback about it too, right?
Yeah, the thing I'll say also, I'm just thinking of people I know and couples, especially who are in a relationship where one of them's in a wheelchair, is being willing to ask. Like, I'm talking about the person in the wheelchair, because there's a couple I know, younger couple, and looking at him and then looking at her in the wheelchair, it's almost like, imagine she's as tall as him, and but sitting down, obviously, but they're both very lean, thin people, and I think they're both actors, I think, if I remember correctly, but definitely they carry themselves with that sort of self-assuredness and such. But even in the wheelchair, she does that too. And I remember when I met them the first time, it's like, I didn't feel like I had to accommodate anything. I knew that if she needed something, she would ask me. And it felt so clean that way. So if you are somebody in a wheelchair, even though you may have told 25 people what you need, meet person number 26, they don't know anything. So you have to, sometimes the challenge is when you are in that disability experience, is you feel like you're tired of telling people. But the thing is, they may have only heard it for the first time or never heard it before. So it's kind of in your own self-support and service of yourself to be willing to say to them, as if they're a brand new person, because they are, a brand new experience for them is what you're going through, what you're dealing with, what you need, so they can accommodate you the way you need. Because the challenge is, unfortunately, sometimes people get resentful on either side of the conversation because they don't either want to deal with it or they're so fed up telling people what they need. And the reality is that we're always meeting new people and we're always being new people. So it's kind of like, remember, it's okay to be novel again, to be new again, to ask again, to find out what's going on. So just a little tip.
Well, isn't that one of the basic things you and I talk about in dating in general? Figure out what you want to need and tell the other person.
Yeah, we
They
do.
don't know.
Right.
I mean, my big thing is, I'm going to totally go off subject here, but when somebody, I go out with them a couple times, I meet them, and now I'm going to let them pick me up at my house. I let them know right away, I really like having the car door open for me. So when I come out my little front gate, they're standing there opening the door for me, and it makes my day. I just love it. So if you have special requirements for your disability, please say, this is what works best for me. It works best for me if you walk ahead of me, to get the door. It works best behind me because I want to be able to see where I'm going. I mean, I really, as you said, we encourage people to be very nicely vocal about what works for you and what you need other people to do. And then, gosh, boy, when I said to that woman, don't touch my walker, you need to be vocal about that too. The other thing you were talking about that I think is really essential, when you're with somebody, don't answer for them. it can be tempting because I think often the people will look at the person that's with them rather than the person in the wheelchair, and they'll ask them, and we're like, if they're capable, I mean, some people
Right.
aren't, but if they're, please ask them, ask. I mean, and they have to be supportive about that too, that you're the
Hmm.
person. No, not my job. Really, my job is to be here. It's their job to tell you. So I like that too. I like having that kind of understanding that you get to say your stuff, whatever you're capable of doing, and I'll say my stuff.
Simple. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is, that is one of the challenges too, is that when you are with somebody who is, I mean, this is the thing. I've been out with friends who mine who are handicapped or in wheelchairs. Sorry, I use that term handicapped. Let me back up something.
No, it's so not
People say,
PC right now. It's too
I
bad.
know, and that's the thing I need to own that one. So disabled is a better. I mean, physically challenged is the safest one to use, but still. So I apologize if I'm overusing that word, and for anyone who's listening, I didn't use that with any sense of
No,
arrogance. I
we
just want
don't
to clear
mean it
that
at
up.
all. No.
No. So going with a friend of mine who was in a wheelchair is watching the other people respond to them, or just say react is a better word, is how they didn't know what to do. And so, in a sense, it was actually funny because I felt like I knew something they didn't. So I felt special because I knew how to get with my friend and be with her and how we'd work did stuff. So I remember that experience. But the thing about it is that a lot of people out there, unfortunately, don't know how to be with somebody who's in a wheelchair or is challenged or is, has like a mobility. So it is something where the education is needed, period, not by necessarily by the person who's in the wheelchair, but period is needed. And so for us who are with that person, sometimes it can be good just to sort of create the bubble, the boundary around them to make sure they're taken care of, because we don't need to do anything for them except to make sure that they have access to go where they need to go. So noticing ahead of time, like where the bumps in the road are, literally, so they can get them around them, where the door is, so you can open it so they can get through. Make sure the door's wide enough for the wheelchair. Like when we're involved in that conversation, when we are participating with the person in the wheelchair, having the wherewithal and having the awareness to check around, to keep an eye on things, can be a great gift to give them.
Yeah. So I have a friend who walks with a cane. He had polio when he was quite young, and he played sports, and I mean, he's very mobile, but he walks with a cane.
Hmm.
And so one night we were going out to dinner, and he loves open. I love having the door open, and he's very capable of opening the door for me. So I slowed down, he sped up, and there was a line. We had reservations, but there was a line, and this guy jumps up out of his seat, and the woman next to him glared at me and went over to open the door. And he was nice, he said thank you, but he didn't need it. I mean, it was really kind of
Right.
a funny little play that happened. But we both, you just why make a noise about it? It's not
Yeah.
but it was funny because it was our thing that he always opens the door for me because he's perfectly, because we talked about it in the beginning. I like it. Can you do it? He goes, yeah. I go, okay.
But the thing is, again, people outside don't know. So there is that, let's say, sort of thing happens. And so in some ways, what it can do actually is bring you close with that person. I know my friend, we had a lot of laughs about it because
Get a
we
little
were on the
chuckle.
side of like, it's like we had this, not so much a secret, but we knew what's going on. And watching other people not sure how to handle it was almost like amusing. Much it wasn't necessarily ideal, but that's what happened. So I'm not saying make light of it, but I am saying be aware that there are people who get it and people who don't, and that's the way it is.
And that's the other thing that, how much can you live in this world that isn't generally built for you because
Mhm.
it's, I mean, what's the percentage of the population? I mean, certainly as us baby boomers are aging, maybe more. And so how do you maneuver? What's your best way of maneuvering? How can I support you? What way can I easily do stuff for you? And what do you want me to go? Yeah, no, I'm perfectly fine. I can do all that by myself. So there you are having that open conversation again. And the other thing I find is when I'm out and about and I see kids, and I was a wish granter for 7 years through Make-A-Wish. And the thing about those kids, they had to have a terminal illness. They didn't have to die, but they had to have something that was life-threatening. They wanted to talk about it. They knew all the diagnosis, they knew all the words, they knew all the treatments, and they were just so happy to have somebody who actually would ask. And then we'd move
Right.
on and we'd do a party and we'd do games and we'd play stuff. And but they wanted to have somebody who didn't just go, oh, like it's catchy or something, that could really have a
Mhm.
conversation with them about it. And it really taught me how fearless they are and how amazingly bold and resilient and ready to do whatever they could do. Because there were things they couldn't do,
Yeah.
but they were game to try it. And then they'd say, I know I could do this, but I can't do that. You have to
Mhm.
bring this equipment if we're going to go, or I can only do this for so long. And they would tell you, okay, we got it figured out. And I loved that about them, where so often we don't allow adults that as much. And I think that they
Right.
get more concerned about offending people or putting people out. And I want you to, in the nicest way, because that works best for me, tell me what works. Tell me how we
Mhm.
can do this. And if I'm stupid and I didn't know better, be kind of nice about it, because I'm willing to learn.
Yeah. I totally get it. Yeah, that's the thing I think that's again, is because we don't know. So to be humble enough and to be kind enough to ask and find out is probably the smartest approach to this whole thing in the first place. And the challenge, I believe, is that we have this bad habit of assuming. Like, because if you're somebody in a wheelchair, well, you've seen other people in wheelchairs, you think that's the way they're going to be. It's like, you don't know that. So being willing to ask, to inquire, to find out. And if they don't want to tell you, that's fine too. But it's that recognition is that we don't have to like think we know everything. First of all, that's true for all, and we know it's true for all relationships and dating as well. So it's interesting. A lot of things we're talking about in this conversation apply to every relationship, not just people with disabilities. Interesting that.
I was picking that up too, Barry. I thought that was pretty fascinating. And to be really kind and be really open, because I have learned so much from the challenges that people have lived through in their lives and the challenges that they're going through and how they're handling it and what I could do to support them. And I just admire it so much. And I think it says I am open, that I want to learn, teach me, tell me if
Hmm.
I'm doing something wrong, that people do tend to talk to you and I mean, it's really lovely that we have this gift that when we're out in the world, people seem comfortable just being in our presence.
That's
So, and I
what we
think I
do.
decided when we were going to do this, I thought we are being so bold because it's not our personal experience. We haven't,
No.
our bodies are abled. We generally are, most of the people we are in our lives are. And I just think it could be too taboo, too
Mhm.
hidden if this isn't brought out. And since we're the ones talking about this, I thought we're just going to put it out there and hopefully people will take it with the spirit that it's done, right?
Well, absolutely. And as you said earlier, and I'll repeat now, if you're watching this or listening to us on the podcast and you have thoughts about this because you've gone through it yourself, please let us know because we are, as I said at the beginning, we're new at this too. We don't know all the answers. So if you've got ideas that will help us become better ourselves, we'd love to hear from you. So this is not a we know everything standing on the mountain and you're going to listen to us because we know everything there is. That's true of every episode, frankly. But we do know quite a bit. So we share from what we know and what we learned. So just to be aware of the fact that we are students as much as we are teachers.
And we're always happy to learn.
Yeah.
So if it's your personal experience with your body or personal experience with somebody that you love, lived with, raised, we would love to hear back about what your experiences have been. And because isn't the world just going to be a better place if we understand each other better, are more compassionate, and that we can get to a place where we go, yeah, this isn't just
Hmm.
another difference. It's just another path in your life. And what can we bring to each other that makes each of our lives better because we met?
Yeah.
That I might think of a place that you've never thought of going, or you're going to take me a place in a way that I've never gone there. I mean, how fun is that? And that just applies to dating, period. And hopefully the foundation that you're laying, that your ultimate relationship, now that you're in a committed partnership with each other, is going to be built on this thing of we're going to use each other's strengths and help each other with our weaknesses, whatever it is, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. How do we keep each other getting better And
Mhm.
I think this whole conversation has a lot to do with all four of those areas, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's. I mean, we've said before, and I know I said it a lot of times with my clients, is that relationship is a place to learn. It's a school basically. And ideally, it's a fun one. Ideally, not promising, but ideally it is.
Hopefully.
So there's going to be opportunities and challenges along the way where you maybe go, I didn't know that. So this is just another component or another facet of that experience of being in a relationship, that you have the opportunity to be a student once again, to learn, to be in improved in your own awareness and become more of a wise person. So take it on that way.
Yeah. So I was thinking of a couple of other places that people could go that are like interesting amusement places. Like I know a couple people that went with their partners hang gliding. But they arranged it very specifically ahead of time with the
Oh yeah.
people. And they said, we're going to figure out how to do it. And they did it. And it was fabulous. And then they were way taller than everybody, huh?
Indeed, much higher.
So think out of the box, and you might come
Yeah.
there, go, yeah, no, it's never going to happen. Okay. But if it can't happen, at least you asked. And there might be something
Mhm.
else, we can't do that, but we could do this. So
Yeah, there's so many things.
think out of the box. I think that's
Absolutely.
the
And the
essential
thing,
thing, right?
yeah, the thing about it for me is ultimately is that, and this I'm going to say it this way intentionally. There are people who basically think they can't do things, and so they're disabled from doing those things themselves. And I'm not talking about people who have got physical challenges. I'm talking about people in real life,
Yep.
adult life, normal life, regular life. And so we as human beings we all have our own disabilities in areas of our lives where certain things just don't fit us. So to have a one that may be more visible, more seen, doesn't make you any worse off, just makes you different. And so this conversation about what you can then do, what you're able to do, is limited really by your imagination. Because there are some things you don't think you can do because you don't believe you can. That's true for us as, regular able-bodied people. We still have the same thing where we don't think we can do something. So just take it this to heart, that there's no limits, really. There are certain physical limits, obviously, but it's like there are no limits to what you can entertain, what's possible. So explore, enjoy it, and take on new challenges where you say, you know what, I've never tried this before. Let me see what I can do with this. You never know what can happen. And in dating, especially.
I love that, Barry. That was the perfect way to wrap this up because we're always telling people, get off your couch.
Indeed.
Go find something to do, and you'll meet other people that like doing the same thing. And who knows what friends or romantic relationships you could find from doing that.
Indeed.
So,
So
if you have any of these challenges in your life, or you want to write to each of us and tell us what your personal experience have been, we would love to hear. And the way to reach me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com, and scroll to the middle of the page. And there's a What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire, 10 brief questions about where you are and where you think you'd like to be. We'll figure out how to get you there. And then you schedule a conversation that's complimentary at your convenience. You can also join my website on the same webpage. And then at the bottom of my webpage is all my social media icons of Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. Ha! And you can
mhm.
also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And
And
Barry, tell people how to reach you.
what you want to say that you said something about they can join your website. You mean they can join the email list?
Boy, thank you, Barry. It's
Just
late, which is why we're looking a little dark here. And I think I got thrown off. And Barry always watches my back.
I do what I can.
Thank you. Yes, you can
So
join my email list, my mailing
exactly.
list. Yeah.
Yes. So I have one of those too, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So you can find out more about where I do and where I am at my website, which is barryselby.com. And on my homepage, there are 3 things I recommend. One at the top of the screen, or near the top of the screen, is an opportunity to have a chat with me, which is similar to Christine's. I have a complimentary discovery session available with a form you fill out and get on my calendar, and we can talk and see where you are and where you want to go, and if I can help you with that. Because I don't promise I can help everybody. I'd like to, but I don't think I can. So we'll see if we can work together. In the middle of the screen is my quiz that I created a while back. I've actually got a new one I'm brewing, which I'll tell you about that another time. But I have a relationship readiness assessment, which I created, which is basically a quiz that will give you some questions to think about and ponder where you are in the process of getting this relationship and if you're ready for one or not. And again, that'll lead to an invitation to have a conversation with me. So if you go to the quiz that's on the homepage, or you can go to barryselby.com/quiz, that'll take you right there as well. The bottom of the screen is the same as Christine. You can join my email list. You can opt in at the bottom of the screen if you want to be in my audience and find out more about what I do, including replays of the show and other things I'm up to and what I'm working on, other offers I may provide as well. Also, my website is my book, which is a bestseller, by the way. A couple of online courses and always finding out more about work. I have testimonials on my website as well. On my book, I'm going to say this quick thing. If you haven't checked it out already, this I put up a while ago. I had a friend of mine turn me onto this AI product that let me create basically an interrogation of my book. So if you haven't got my book yet and you want to find out more about it, go to my book page, which is barryselby.com/book. And there's a little playback bar right at the top, which is basically about a 12-minute conversation with two AI voices that sound like real people talking about my book. And I'm blown away by how good it was. So if you want to find out more about my book from two critics, go to the book page and have a listen. It's kind of fun. And additionally, if you want to reach out to me on social media, so I'm going to switch gears to that again. My name is my label on pretty much every social media platform except Instagram and Threads, which is the real Barry Selby. But I am Barry Selby on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest. I'm still kind of on X, but not very much, and on Blue Sky, where I'm on as well. And if you want to drop me an email, send me one at barry@barryselby.com. I think that's everything.
I think so. So we are here every week live at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And then you can also watch the replay either by signing up on either one of our email lists or to go to Apple TV or Roku, which we're storming doing Roku. Lots of people are watching us there. But you can also take us with you, huh, Barry?
Absolutely. The great thing is that now our show is on podcast platforms. So if you have a podcast platform you listen to, whether Spotify, Apple, Amazon, whichever, you can find Let's Talk Dating show there, and you can follow us and listen to our shows wherever you go, whether you're hiking, riding, biking, driving, working out, shopping, whatever you're doing. So you can listen to us wherever you go, if you want.
And we would love for you to, whether you're listening or watching us, to share it with your friends who are having some dating or relationship challenges. Like, subscribe. We would love that. People are telling us they're binging us. It's so fun.
Yep. So
we like it. We like being bingeable.
Yes, we do.
We will be back next week with another interesting subject.
Yep. We'll see you then. Take care of yourselves.
Bye for now.